Morning. Welcome back to my channel. This is Bookeemonsters. My name is PK. It is Friday, January 5th, and we are here on a Friday morning, typically to look at the new releases that are being set free into the wild each week in certain genres. But today we are going to look at some historical mystery options if you would like to participate in the Mid-Winter HistMyst Readathon that I am hosting. Historical mysteries are my favorite of all the genres out there. It is a huge subgenre. And for me, I just love learning about historical things because authors do try their best, for the most part, to be accurate as possible. And I like that the crime solver has to use the technology of the time to solve the crime, which is typically just talking to people and puzzling it out. So let's check in super duper quick. Hi, Elena. See you in 30 minutes. And Hummingbird, hello, everyone. Enjoying the readathon. Hope everyone else is. I hope so, too. It is such a fabulous subgenre that people are afraid of for some reason, I think, because of the word history. And I don't know why. But if you are looking for other resources to see what you might want to dip your toes in or want to expand what you're already reading, I mentioned this in the last Friday show. There is a resource out there. It is stopyourkillingme.com, all spelled out, but without the comma and the exclamation point there. Stopyourkillingme.com. And if you look on the side here, they have different tabs. And if you go down to about halfway, there is one called Historical Index. And they have broken it into different historical periods. Ancient, 476 to 1500, so therefore a medieval time period. The 1500s, because there's lots of Tudor stuff to write about. The 1600s and the 1700s. Then it's into the 1800s, which covers both the Regency and the Victorian eras. In the first 10 years of the 1900s is the Edwardian period, and then they break it into the decades 1910, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90s are now considered historical. And so from there, it lists different, let's take a look at the 80s just to be fun. Though I would say that these aren't historical. There's a difference between writing a story set in that time period and a story that was written during that time period. It's historical if you are writing it now about that earlier time period. It is not historical if you published it in that time period. I hope you catch the difference there. To me, an Agatha Christie is not really a historical, because even though it is an older time period, she wrote it contemporarily then. So, not that there's anything wrong with reading them set of authors that wrote in that time period. I love them. But there is a difference there. All right. And that website is stopyourkillingme.com. I had bookmarked some. Oh, you might be wondering, what am I going to be reading for Mid-Winter HistMyst? I have bookmarked the books I'm going to be reading in January, and most of them are historical. Some are new releases that I will be reading. But I just finished An Impossible Imposter by Deanna Rayburn. That one's 7th of 9 in her Veronica Speedwell series, and I gave it 5 stars. One of my very favorite storylines is True Love Delayed, or a slow burn romance, not as the main focus, but it's a nice little spice to the story. And this series is very good for that. I'm currently going to be getting into The Secret of the Lady's Maid by Darcy Wilde. This is 7th in her historical HistMyst series set during the Regency. Deanna Rayburn is Victorian era. Darcy Wilde is Regency. But others I hope to get to are Emma Jamison's Bones Takes a Holiday, which is 3rd in that series. Murder by the Grave by Irina Shapiro. I think that one is 5th in that series. Andrea Penrose has a new one coming out this month, starting a new series called The Diamond of London. A Gentleman of Dubious Reputation by Grace Burrows is 2nd in her series. Another Andrea Penrose, this is Murder at the Merton Library. I can't remember which number that is. It might be 5th, maybe. Death at the Fournier Downs by Cara Devlin. That is 2nd in her series. And Deadly Secrets by Carla Simpson. That is also 2nd in a series. Those two I know for sure are Kindle Unlimited. I think that Grace Burrows is a Kindle Unlimited. Murder by the Grave is a Kindle Unlimited. So there are definitely some options that you can jump into without spending money if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. I think also Bones Takes a Holiday is a Kindle Unlimited. So those are on my TBR for this month. I hope to make a big dent. I'll be reading them anyway, just because those are next in series for me. Remember to check out Stop Your Killing Me website and lots of options for the genre. Absolutely. Good morning, Mary. Hope you're having a good morning. Forgot to ask how the cutting of the hairs went yesterday. Remember said, so just finished Hercule Poirot's Silent Night by Sophie Hannah. So would you consider this historical? I would, because a contemporary author wrote about that time period. Sophie Hannah is the author. She just wrote it recently. She's writing about that time period. It is historical. Agatha Christie writing about it in the 1930s is not historical. That would be a golden age classic mystery. I'm so picky. Hang on, let me close one of these tabs here I have up. We don't need to have those up. All right. So these are some others that I had bookmarked to take a look at. Some I have read. A lot of these I have read. But just to jump in a little deeper, to wet the whistle. I think Cajun brought this one up too, and I read it in 2019. A Lady's Guide to Etiquette and Murder. This is by Diane Freeman. There are 6 books in this series, the Countess of Harley Mysteries. In this exciting historical mystery debut set in Victorian England, a wealthy young widow encounters the pleasures and scandalous pitfalls of a London social season. Frances Wynne, the American-born Countess of Harley, enjoys more freedom as a widow than she did as a wife. That is a very common theme. With her young daughter in tow, Frances rents a home in Belgravia and prepares to welcome her sister Lily, arriving from New York for her first London season. But no sooner has Frances begun her new life than the Metropolitan Police receive an anonymous letter implicating Frances in her husband's death. Frances assures Inspector Delaney of her innocence, but she is also keen to help him from learning the scandalous circumstances of Reggie's demise. As fate would have it, her dashing new neighbor George Hazelton is one of only 2 other people aware of the full story. While busy with social engagements on Lily's behalf and worrying if Reggie really was murdered, Frances rallies her wits, a circle of gossips, and the ever-chivalrous Mr. Hazelton to uncover the truth. A killer is in their midst, and Frances must unmask the villain before Lily's season and their lives come to a most unseemly end. Murder at Morrington Hall. This I have also read the first. I don't know if I've continued in it, but I love these covers. For some reason, these covers just make me happy. Um, this is a Stella and Lindy mystery series set. Let's see, there are 5 in this series so far, and I believe, is it Victorian? You'll find a common theme, and if you watch Downton Abbey, it was also something that occurred. American heiresses often went to England to find husbands. Husbands were looking for the money, and the Americans were looking for some prestige. At least the fathers were. Stella Kendrick is an all-American heiress who can't be tamed, but when the lively, aspiring equine trainer tangles with British aristocracy, she meets her match, and a murderer. Like the thoroughbred she rides across the Kentucky countryside, Stella takes adventure by the reins when she's asked to attend a mysterious wedding in rural England. But once she arrives at the lush Morrington Hall estate, her cold, ambitious father reveals that he has arranged to give his daughter as bride to the Earl of Atherley's financially strapped son. Stella refuses to be sold off like a prized pony, yet there's something intriguing about her groom-to-be, the roguish Viscount Lindy Lyndhurst. The unlikely pair would actually be on the right track with each other until they find the vicar who was to marry them dead in the library. They do this. Now Stella and Lindy must put their marriage on hold to prevent an unbridled criminal from destroying their new life together right out of the gate. And next one is the first in the series, of which in my to be read I just showed you I was going to be reading the second. I really liked this one. This is called A Gentleman Fallen on Hard Times. There's 4 books now in this series by Grace Burrows. A man dwelling in darkness. Lord Julian Caldecott has come home from the war, this is the Napoleonic War, in ragged health and with reputation in tatters. All he wants is to recuperate in private without bringing any further scandal on the family's good name. His godmother inveigles him into serving as her escort to a rural house party, whereupon circumstances conspire to prevent Julian from resuming his reclusive existence. Julian becomes a subject of rumors, lies, and whispers, and soon he's faced with a choice: wage one more battle for honor's sake, or be branded a traitor to all that he holds dear. He will enlist unlikely allies, face old demons, and vex every other guest on the premises, but he will not stop until he's brought a criminal to justice or die trying. This character was held prisoner during that war and has physical, long-lasting things to deal with because of it, which I found intriguing. Mary says many of the hairs succumb to the scissors. Seems pretty short, but I like it. Good. I'm fascinated by all the series you all read. I have very seldom read a series, but that is a new thing for me. You have a whole new world. That is an exciting place to be. And Hummingbird said, very interested in Murder at Morrington Hall. Also love the covers. Think some of them are on KU. I think so too. Yep. I don't know. I would take those covers and have them be posters. I think they are just so design-wise pretty. This next one is another series I'm going to be reading hopefully this month, Carla Simpson. It is Kindle Unlimited. This first one is A Deadly Affair. There's 7 books so far in this series, and this is set in Victorian era. London, 1889. Murder, mystery, and 2 people in a most unlikely partnership. She's an unconventional lady who has traveled the world, practices the art of self-defense most excellently, and has an interesting tattoo in a very unusual place. He's a former member of the Metropolitan Police, now a private investigator, who grew up on the poverty-ridden streets of Edinburgh and has worked the dangerous back alleys of London's notorious East End. A vicious murder brings them together in a race against time that takes them from the sordid back streets of London into the elite private clubs of the powerful and rich. To find the killer before he strikes again, and prevent a deadly scheme. A scandalous affair, deceptions, and secrets will challenge what they know and what they believe. You will find in historical mysteries, particularly in this kind of time period, a lot of similar setups, but to me, each author puts their own spin on it. This next one is the first in another series. I'm going to be reading the second in this month, hopefully. This is Murder at the Seven Dials by Cara Devlin, also Kindle Unlimited. There are also 7 books in this series. The romantic historical mystery series readers are devouring, blah, blah, blah. A murdered opera singer, a duke drenched in her blood. For Bow Street officer Hugh Marsden, the brutal killing is a straightforward case. Ever since his own exile from polite society, Hugh's distaste for the ton has grown. Now an opportunity to take down a peer of the realm has practically fallen into his lap. The only thing standing in his way? Audrey Sinclair, the Duchess of Fournier. Audrey is certain her husband is wrongly accused, and she's determined to prove it to the arrogant Bow Street officer, even if she must employ her most peculiar ability, or perhaps curse, to guide her investigation. After all, a duchess can do as she pleases. Though Hugh is exasperated with the meddling duchess, when her own discoveries reveal the true killer is still at large, he has no choice but to join her in the hunt, if only to prevent her from becoming the next victim. ... This next one is an older series, but there's a lot of books, and I have read the first few. I haven't kept up with it. Yeah, I first read this in, I think, 2011, maybe even earlier. This is, I think, earlier because it took a while to come out on Kindle. This is the Dandy Gilver series. There's 15 so far in this series. By Katrina McPherson. And yes, that is pronounced Katrina. I sat next to this author at a mystery book convention, and I asked her how to pronounce it, and she says this is Katrina. So this first one is After the Armistice Ball. It is set in the 1920s, which I think is a fun period. Right after the First World War. Dandy Gilver, her husband back from the war, her children off at school, and her uniform growing musty in the attic, is bored to a whimper in the spring of 1923, and a little light snooping seems like harmless fun. Before long, though, the puzzle of what really happened to the Duffy Diamonds after the Armistice Ball has been swept aside by a sudden, unexpected death in a lonely seaside cottage in Galway. Society and the law seem ready to call it an accident, but Dandy, along with Cara Duffy's fiancé Alec, is sure that there is more going on than meets the eye. What is being hidden by members of the Duffy family, the watchful Lena, the cold and distant Clements, and old Gregory Duffy with his air of quiet sadness, not to mention Cara herself, whose secret always seems just tantalizing out of view. Dandy must learn to trust her instincts and swallow most of her scruples if he is to uncover the truth and earn the right to call herself a sleuth. I like this series not only because it is set in a time period I like. The female main character is not a debutante. She is a little older, a mature woman. Sorry, just checking in. This next one I read quite a while ago. And if you like Veronica Speedwell and, say, Sherry Thomas's Charlotte Holmes series, which I highly recommend, this author kind of did it first as far as I have read. There are only 4 books in this series. She stopped writing it, but again, if you don't want to have a big, huge commitment, say like the Victoria Thompson Gaslight series, this is a nice one to jump into. This is by Imogen Robertson. It's the Westerman and Crowther mystery book series. This is called Instruments of Darkness. I believe this came out in 2007. Starring a pair of amateur 18th century sleuths with razor sharp minds. When Harriet Westerman, the unconventional mistress of a Sussex manor, finds a dead man on her grounds, she enlists a reclusive anatomist, Gabriel Crowther, to help her find the murderer, moving from drawing room to dissecting room, from dark London streets to the gentrified countryside, etc., etc. If you like that, we'll call it a trope, but it's gotten used to death, of strong-minded, independent as much as she can be female in the 1800s, be it Regency up to Victorian time, and the scientific male. This kind of did it first, and it is well written. I do recommend this series. I'd like to reread it all over again. And I didn't click on it. I apologize. Let me bring that up again so you can take a look at it. There it is. I'm bad. More coffee. Greenberg said, I have After the Armistice Fall. I haven't gotten to it yet. I love historical mysteries set during the World Wars and interwar period. Me too. I, up until recently, kind of stopped from beginning of time up to about the 1930s. I've now ventured into the 40s and 50s in my preferred time periods of reading. But that is I love, if you want to watch a fantastic movie, if you haven't, but it is my favorite movie, probably of all time, is Gosford Park. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It is a mystery movie. It has a cast of fabulous people, and it was written by the guy who did Downton Abbey before he did Downton Abbey. So that's your homework assignment this weekend. Watch Gosford Park. It's Friday. You're allowed. I'm so glad it's Friday. For short weeks, it is sure long. I tell you. But I'm very glad to have the weekend. So we are out of time again. We will have to hang on a second. Did this backwards. There we go. We'll be doing it again next Friday. There's just so much, and there's so much good stuff out there. So I hope you, even if you saw this show, I hope you go back to like the first one, which was a couple weeks ago, because those were my favorites. Some of my very favorites series. But there's so much, I tell you. All righty. Well, thank you guys so much for either watching now or watching it later, because you're not a morning person, which is perfectly okay. No sprints tonight, but we do have sprints tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern time. It'll go for 5 hours. So bring a good book, work on a project, etc. Be productive, etc., etc. If I don't see you, I hope you have a very good weekend. I hope you have a good Friday. And it's the beginning of a new year. If you're not enjoying what you're reading, it's okay to set it down for now. It's just a pause, and we have a commercial. Reading is fun. It's not an assignment. And as the banner says here, don't be a bookworm, be a bookie monster. Om nom nom. Have a good day and God bless.